Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hue-Man Books here in Harlem, New York City. My name is Brian DeShazer, and I'm the director of the Pacifica Radio Archives, the oldest and largest collection of public radio programming in the United States, going back to 1949, and that holds 55,000 reel-to-reel tape masters documenting the progressive left for, I said, the last half of the 20th century. And it's my job to do the preservation and accessibility of those recordings. And it sort of inspired the book that we're going to talk about tonight. And just really quick, I'm here to introduce Joanne Griffith, the editor of the book. But I also wanted to let you know that with a purchase of the book here at Hue-Man Books, you'll get a free CD, which is 11 hours of archive recordings. That includes Fannie Lou Hamer, Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, as well as the participants in the book. Joanne Griffith, I was so lucky to find Joanne and meet her in the archive to take on this project. Joanne is an international broadcast journalist, having worked with the BBC, NPR, and the Pacifica Radio Network. Her work over the 17 years in broadcast journalism has been dedicated to the theme of the African diaspora. So it was perfect blending of Joanne's skills as a journalist and my inspiration of bringing the audio to print form that we're here today. So thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to hand over the mic to Joanne Griffith, who will then carry on with our guest panelists. Thank you so much, Joanne. Oh, I also want to mention Greg Ruggiero from City Lights is also here, who helped shepherd this project. So thanks, Greg Ruggiero.
Yeah, it's actually lovely to see Greg. We've been going backwards and forwards for the last 3 years, I guess it is now, talking about this project and framing this project and writing the project and editing the project and me crying over the project and Greg saying, no, you have to get it finished, and me saying, I don't like you. but now it's done, so it's really lovely to be here in New York and to see you, and thank you for helping me put this together. As Brian said, my name is Joanne Griffith. I am an international broadcast journalist and editor of Redefining Black Power. Before we get into the conversation and the discussion tonight, I just really want to give you an idea of what Redefining Black Power is about. This is, as Brian said, a project that was born out of the archive in the Pacifica Radio Archive, and very specifically one particular voice, which I'll tell you about in a moment. I was introduced to the archives back in 2007. I've been a journalist for 17 years, worked for the BBC and NPR, Pacifica Radio Network. I'm an audio nut. I love sound. Any kind of sound, I absolutely love it. I love the way that voices can make you feel. I love the way that when you sit and you listen to a really good piece of radio, you have what's called a driveway moment. You know, when you're sitting in your car or you're listening to a podcast and you can't move. You have to sit and it's like, what happened? And you have to sit and wait. And that's really what I've wanted to do for my entire career, but specifically looking at what happens to people from the African diaspora. You can hear from my accent, I am not from Harlem. I'm not from anywhere in the United States. I was born in the United Kingdom, this tiny little town called Aylesbury. My family is from the Caribbean, from Barbados. Any other Bajans in the house tonight? No, that would make me and my mother the only two, and my husband, who's kind of honorary, you know, he kind of married into the family. So from the Caribbean roots, my parents actually moved to the UK. They had me and my sisters. And it's that kind of global sensibility that I bring to my work. I want to tell the stories of people from the Caribbean, from Africa, from the UK, from Europe, from here in the United States. And I was really fortunate when I stumbled across the archives. Literally, I was here visiting my husband, well, my boyfriend, I guess he was, at the time. And I was like, I want to go and visit a radio station. Anywhere I go in the world, I visit a radio station. And I stumbled across KPFK. I'd long been a fan of Amy Goodman, listening to her on Democracy Now! And I was introduced to Brian and the archives. And literally, I walked into a room that's probably half the size of this room that we're in here at Hue-Man. And as you walk in, bearing in mind I probably needed a jacket that was more well-suited to the weather that you have here in a typical New York winter, I walked in, and on every single side, as we see here, there are books. On every single side of the vault, there are tapes, 55,000 of them. Big reel-to-reel cassettes in these crisp white cardboard boxes. Some of them were yellow with age, you know, like how newspaper turns yellow with age. And they all had numbers on the side. And the numbers don't mean anything. But when you pull them out and you see the names on the back, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, so many of those voices literally crying out and saying, listen to me. Listen to what I have to teach you. Don't keep me here in this vault. Take me out. Learn something. One of the first recordings that Brian actually introduced me to, and which is the inspiration for this book, was a recording by Fannie Lou Hamer. Now, I know some of you know about some Fannie Lou Hamer, right? So Fannie Lou Hamer really is that one voice that cried out so loudly that she couldn't be ignored because she wanted to be heard. And it's a result of Fannie Lou Hamer that we actually have this project called Redefining Black Power. Now, Brian actually wrote, we put everyone to work at the archives, and Brian wrote the foreword for this book. And this is what he said about Fannie Lou Hamer. At the time, I was unfamiliar with Fannie Lou Hamer. Her story is one I hadn't been taught in school. Her voice was like nothing I'd ever heard before. Broadcast from a small studio above an ice cream store on University Avenue in Berkeley was the voice of this woman telling a white, albeit sympathetic interviewer, Colin Edwards, about her work for African American voting rights and her leadership role in the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. Her tone was soft and gentle with its Mississippi drawl and colloquial phrasing, yet it sparked with determination. It was like the heartbreaking voice of Billie Holiday singing Strange Fruit, but there was no sadness in it, just direct, brutal honesty. I heard the pain and the promise of the civil rights movement in those headphones. Her words cut like a dagger as she described the horrific beating she endured. On the orders of a prison guard, 2 black inmates struck Fannie Lou Hamer with weapons, leaving her blind in one eye. Of one of the men, she said, he beat me until he was exhausted. Sitting alone, the dam of my emotions broke there in the corner of a modest office. This interview has never been transcribed or published, nor have countless others like it. If you've not heard that recording of Fannie Lou Hamer, I implore you to reach out to the Pacifica Radio Archives and listen to it. It's like nothing that you have ever heard before. But what we wanted to do with Redefining Black Power is to look at the Obama presidency. You know, we were all excited. We all had something to say about, oh my gosh, there's going to be an African-American president. And even though I'm from the UK, my mum's from Barbados, I have a stack of friends in Africa, we all felt like he was going to be our president too. It was like, we like this brother. We're going to claim him. But he belongs to all of you guys too. You had a chance to vote. We didn't. The election of Barack Obama, whether you voted for him or not, whether you supported him or not, has transformed American political and social life forever. It has transformed the way the world sees the United States. Places like where I was born, it's like, wow, could we perhaps see a black prime minister? Trust, I'm not really holding my breath for that one, but if it could happen here, who knows? Maybe it could happen in another Western country as well. So what we wanted to do with Redefining Black Power was to take the voice of someone like Fannie Lou Hamer and Rosa Parks and Malcolm X and Dr. King and so many other people, so that whenever people talk about this transformative moment in African American history and American history, that they can never talk about Barack Obama without talking about all of the black freedom fighters who fought and died and were maimed on the road to us having an African American president. Before I introduce my panel, Redefining Black Power is about discussion. And in this book, we have 7 interviews that were conducted over 2.5 years, all of them from the perspectives of activists. Activists from the civil rights tradition, activists from the legal system, activists from the media, emotional justice, the prison industrial complex, people who have literally spent their lives trying to make things better for African Americans in this country. One of them who really, you know, was probably one of my favourites, partly because he was the first person I interviewed, but also because